My guest today is Professor Ayşegül Özsomer Tunalı. She is one of the world's foremost thinkers in marketing and brand building. She has over 20 years of experience in research, consulting, and teaching in the United States and in Turkey. She has many publications in global marketing journals, and her papers received several awards. She is the co-author of the book, The New Emerging Market Multinationals. We discuss two topics today. First topic is how can brands navigate the economical crisis? And the second topic is about the emerging brands. How can a brand emerge out of their own country and become multinational? And what are the strategies behind that? Thank you for listening. I would like to move on to the next topic if possible.
Sure.
Which is like your nice book that you gave me. It's in Turkish though, the one that I have in hand, but it's the English version is called The New Emerging Market Multinationals, 4 Strategies for Disrupting Markets and Building Brands. Mm-hmm. So what was the year that the book was written?
Now, we published the book in 2012. With a team of international marketers, Rajiv Batra and Amitava. And Amitava lives in Singapore and Rajiv in the US and me in Turkey. But the other two, as you would understand from the names, they are of Indian origin. So we always used to say, you know, there are these wonderful companies in emerging markets which do such good job with products that satisfy certain segments really well, but they have such challenges as they are trying to build their brands. Usually these companies start as OEMs, original equipment manufacturers for other brands. How can they get out of that corner and build their own brands? So in this book, we studied the strategies for becoming a regional, if not global player with your own brands. And we published it in 2012. And in 2012, it got the Best Strategy Book Award in the US. So we did get some visibility with that. And basically what we did was we studied more than 30 firms from India, China, Mexico, Indonesia, Turkey, you know, emerging markets, which made it somehow to some level. And we asked the founder managers retrospectively to think of the critical decisions they made when they were in a, you know, when they had to make a critical decision. What did they choose? How did they move on? And then we developed a framework of emerging market multinational brand building strategies. So, I mean, I can show you some of the strategies, but before I do that, one thing that got our attention was this. Normally, I also teach international marketing. And one thing we do is, you know, which foreign market to go to. So that question comes first, or a Turkish company may say, which foreign market should I go? Now, this question should be addressed together with which segment am I going to target? Because the segment choice is very important. And you should not just look at the country as if it's a new decision. Like as SMEs, usually they have a limited product portfolio and they focus on a particular group or type of customers. And they know this customer group very well because that's how they became successful domestically. For example, let me give the example of Mahindra from India, a tractor manufacturer. The conditions in India necessitate Mahindra to manufacture very durable, very functional tractors which can survive without needing frequent service due to breaking down. So that they know that segment very well. Now, the same segment, if they want to go abroad after, of course, the neighbors, you should find which customer groups need a durable, robust, not maybe too fancy in design, etc., that type of a tractor. And in fact, they found that segment, the same segment as they serve at home in Africa, in African countries. So that's what we're saying, follow the segment around, because you know that segment well, your product is already successful, it satisfies a need, and then instead of picking the country, follow that segment around until you become at a certain size and success. And once you have that segment information, then you can add, closer segments and expand your target markets. For example, Mahindra, again, looking at the customer groups that need a reliable, robust tractor, they found hobby farmers in the US. Their needs were the same. So normally you would think an Indian tractor maker, how can they succeed in the US where you have those big farms, very automated? But the hobby market, hobby farmers needed a reliable, durable, relatively low cost. So they entered the US market via that segment. And then that segment can be your jumping stone to learn the market and maybe to find other similar markets and move on from that. So to summarize, I would say, rather than saying, US versus India, which one should I go, or Germany versus, Poland, look at your segment. And if you can identify a similar segment, maybe hidden in an otherwise less attractive country.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very different than what I have taught, because as you said, the first behavior is to, first of all, when you want to go abroad, first of all, decide on where you want to go, right? Just like we travel, we plan our travels and trips, but it's not like that actually. Just follow your customer, the customer segment that you know the best, so that you can serve their needs.
Exactly.
Or try to find similar segments, as you give an example in US for the hobby farmers, which is quite interesting. So there are, I know that at the book there are 4 strategies
Yes.
that were explained. But those strategies, as far as I know, is based on the type of the companies, right?
Yes.
In
Yes.
general. Can we give a few highlights about those 4 strategies?
Sure. All those firms that we interviewed and studied, we then were able to identify 4 general strategies for international brand building. Maybe I can share my screen.
Yeah, you can at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay, so are you able to see the 2x2? Okay, so what we found was we have 2 major decisions here. Number 1 is, do we want to exploit our strategic capabilities, competencies in another market? In other words, can we transfer what we know? We talked about just a minute ago, transferring the segment that we know, or finding a segment that we know. The other question that complements that decision is, what makes us who we are? What's our strategic capability or strategic competence? And can I find a market where that strategic competence will make life easy for me? So if I'm just taking the same strategic competency, we call it mechanistic extension. So basically, we leverage existing resources, such as mostly emerging market companies. They have maybe a cost advantage. Maybe they tend to focus on cost. For example, when they innovate, their innovation is to make costs cheaper. Usually it's cost oriented. A mastery over a narrow extendable technology. Let me give you an example. Another Indian company, they used to make hair dyes, but to keep transportation costs low and to make the product more affordable, they would sell it in the powder form. And of course, powder is very easy. So you just open the paper bag, you just add the amount of water needed, you mix it and you apply it. So they were very successful. And then they said, which other markets can we find where women apply their own hair dye and they need an affordable, reliable product? They found Latin America. So from India, they go to Latin America. And here, mastery over narrow extendable technology, meaning they were very, very good in powder dyes. Very good. They knew that the best in the world. So that's what we mean. and ability to identify similar customers by focusing on similar markets, other emerging markets, or going to a dissimilar market, like Mahindra going to the US with the hobby farmers. That would be the cost leader strategy. So we are very familiar with this strategy. Usually emerging market companies enter advanced markets, dissimilar markets, mostly via the economy cost leader segment. For example, when Beko entered the US market, they identified the college students which needed a countertop fridge but couldn't find it, and they offered that in very affordable prices. So that would be a cost leadership strategy. The Mahindra example would be a knowledge leverager strategy, where you leverage your knowledge. And I think the more interesting and mind-opening ones, which were surprises for us, were the ones at the bottom too, which is, you know, you change as you go abroad. You change, you are more customer oriented, you change based on the needs of the customer. We call that dynamic evolution. You innovate, but you do it in a very focused way. I think, Itır, you had the question, you know, usually SMEs think innovation is too costly.
Yeah.
It is costly, but if you just focus on one segment that you know the best, and you just try to innovate for them in a very focused way, it's quite doable. So we call that focused innovation, very, very critical for success abroad. And then, you know, sometimes collaborating with universities is cheaper for access to research and development, customer insights of your particular segment, etc. So this, if you just do it in a similar market, we call it niche customizer. If you do it in an advanced market, we call that a global brand building strategy. And here we found two basic routes to global brand building. When you go to dissimilar markets, from emerging markets, you go to advanced markets, and you change your capabilities as you go with dynamic evolution. So you can do this mainly in two ways. You innovate, as I just explained, or you acquire some successful brands, because brand building, especially building more premium brands or brands with high quality value perceptions, sometimes it's impossible to take your brand up. So that's when you may need to buy small, neglected brands and revive them.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, for here, as far as I see, the first two ones, like the knowledge leverager and the cost leader, is more of the traditional type, which is a little bit more country specific. Either growing bigger in a similar market or emerging market, or on the cost leader side, growing to a developed market. But that's the more traditional approach. And the second one, as you said, is the new firm approach, right? So it's like either you are picking a niche customizer, or you are growing bigger. So I think in terms of marketing, especially, the second part, the dynamic evolution, has a lot of things. We can talk about that a lot, right?
Definitely.
Because you have to create some brand awareness in both pieces, and product awareness as well. So is there any, how can SMEs expand their brand awareness, especially for the global brand builder case? Because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this more interesting strategies, the dynamic evolution ones, also necessitate, like the niche customizer, you need to know the niche, and then you start introducing new products for the niche. But how do you fill your line for the niche? You have to generate customer insight. For example, you start doing more market research. We know SMEs normally do not do much formal market research, but this will be a time when, you know, you may actually do at least some focus groups in those foreign markets, hire local market research teams, go there. A very nice example is a Turkish company which makes diapers, paper products, toilet papers, etc., they kind of wanted to focus on the baby diaper segment, and in Nigeria, in North Africa actually, and after entering Algeria, they thought for the baby diapers, Nigeria is a big population market, lots of kids. So they went there. They did some customer insight generation. They visited homes and they told me about this great insight. They said there are these women like semi-nannies which take care of 10, 12 babies, and they can change a baby's diaper while holding the baby in one hand. They are so good and they are so fast. They are professional caretakers. So parents who work take their kids there in the morning and pick up at night. It's nothing like a daycare. It's only one woman, you know. So she has to change very quickly the diapers of 8, 10 children. So ease of use, etc., how quickly the straps attach so they don't come out, how when you just open it, the diaper is ready to be applied, the shape, it's not flat, it's a little bit curled so that it's very easy. So all of those insights came from just a couple visits to Nigeria with the marketing team. And they did so well that, I mean, very quickly they challenged the market leader there, which was a very well-established multinational.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, I mean, probably developing diapers for Nigeria didn't take them, other than the research part, didn't take them too much of cost, or didn't require a lot of budget to develop the product, right? I mean, it's when you obsess the customer insights and customer needs or pain points, then it's probable that you can come up with ways to improve your products without spending too much of budget. It's all about finding that niche, just like it's a very nice example about the diapers. It's a niche customizer, really.
Yes, yes. And the niche is going to buy huge amounts of diapers from you.
Because you're solving a big problem on the customer side, yes. A big pain point on the customer side.
Yes, and they were able to give their diapers at a price point which was more acceptable for these women who take care of babies. So very quickly, the operation became a huge success. And as you mentioned, they already have the know-how of making diapers for Turkey. They have their factory, they have their research team. So just focusing on Nigeria, the marginal cost was not that big compared to the marginal benefit.
Because I mean, the thing that I'm seeing right now at the SMEs locally in Turkey, for example, many of them are hoping to. It's very normal that they want to expand globally. I mean, they want to expand to other markets. And the first behavior that comes from their side is to see, okay, what are the tactics that I need to apply? Do I have to give ads? Which channels do I have to give these ads? Or which city should I focus on? However, before the tactics, as we always say, comes the strategy and really deep down understanding either that market or the customer, so that you can find a niche or you can find an area in that country that is underserved, right? I mean, I think research plays a really important role before we move on to the tactics like, okay, which type of ads should I use, or which type of brand awareness activities should I do? Before that, we need to find our differentiating distinctive point of differentiation.
Yes, Ilter, I'm so glad you said this, because you are seeing this in the marketplace, that companies, managers are very anxious. Let's go to this country and let's start advertising, or where to advertise, what to do online. Now the big thing is using bloggers, vloggers. But, you know, if you haven't done your strategy, for example, if they didn't go to that country and actually visit these women and see the conditions they are working on, now all that footage, the language that this woman caretaker uses, you can use that in your communication with your target market. So the research doesn't only help you design your strategy and your point of difference and how you're going to differentiate from the already existing large Western multinational who has been there, who has big budgets, maybe 10, 20, 30 times your budget. You can't compete them with advertising, but you can compete them by giving a value proposition, which the others don't give. And then sometimes word of mouth, sometimes neighbors telling each other. For example, in that market, rather than doing TV advertising initially, maybe you need to have a team on the ground delivering to the homes of these caretakers, because they can't go to the store to get it. They have no time. So delivering these large quantities to the home of these caretakers already wins their heart. I mean, it's such a big advantage. And then they start telling others. Word of mouth is very important in emerging markets.
Yeah.
So you need to first understand your target market, as you said.
That's the first thing that many of the brands or companies, regardless of their size, unfortunately, it's easy to jump to tactics, and because I mean, everyone wants to talk about the creative side of the business, photo shooting, influencer marketing, which
it's more fun. It's more fun. You know,
maybe that sounds a little bit more easy, because trying to understand the market in depth and trying to understand the customer segment in depth again, it requires time and requires also effort. Without taking any action. It's like a runner getting ready for its marathon, right? I mean, you have to have like preparation, and you have to understand the dynamics of running. You have to understand the types of footwear and so on. It's just like entering a new market. You have to make your research rather than going out there and then giving ads. Or just hiring influencers or PR firms is not the solution. I think we all need a little bit of patience and respect that the flow of strategy and importance of strategy before then jump into the tactics, if possible. I always try to give that example of of the circles. It all starts with your brand identity, then comes your strategy. Then comes at the very last stage comes your plan and the tactics, like the ads, influencers, and so on. But it's the last piece of that pillar, right? I mean, it's the last piece of that journey.
I mean, think about also how an SME is so limited with resources, their money, the managerial time. So they don't have the luxury to make mistakes. If they make a couple mistakes, they can be out of business. So for them, especially what we are saying here, really focus on who your target market is, what you want to be for them. For example, if you do not do this research in Nigeria and use a blogger which is fancy, nicely dressed, I mean, it's like mistargeting. These women will not associate with that woman, because the reality of like a housewife working, that doesn't it's a big loss. And you will still, and then we'll say, oh, well, maybe our products, maybe we can't do it in this market. Well, you can't do it. You make mistakes because you didn't do your strategy first, implementation next.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like taking calculated actions when you are entering a new market or a new customer segment, it's, I think, quite important. I hope the SMEs, I mean, because I'm sometimes having hard time to answer the needs. I think one of the biggest things that we learned from this conversation, and I also learned that rather than picking the country first, maybe picking up the segment and focusing on the customer first. And trying to find paths to expand from there is much more of a clever choice. That's
Definitely.
what I see. Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, is there anything that you would like to add, by the way, in terms of the things that the book delivers, or?
Well, I think we pretty much discussed the main points. And also, I think it's important to have a realistic time expectation. Now, brand building takes time. Even with these customers that you picked, which are similar to your home market, let's say, or which are not similar but have an unmet need that the other large firms are not satisfying, it takes time. So as you enter a foreign market, you need to have the mental patience and also the resources aside to take time and don't expect results, in just 1 year. Sometimes the implementation part, even if your strategy is right, you may have difficulties in implementing and you may get frustrated. So you need to have the mindset that it's a long journey. It's not a short-term strategy. But going back to what you said, that given the environments of emerging markets, especially, markets like, Brazil, Turkey, excluding China, which has a very consistent, centrally managed growth and economy policy, which is very favorable for business. Markets like Turkey, Brazil, Argentina, Egypt, they tend to have more uncertainty, political uncertainty, economic uncertainty. So of course, going abroad is a great strategy. If you already don't have a foreign market, you should have it as soon as possible. But as you try to go abroad, you need to do your homework. You need to work with people who know what they are doing. You need to hire a couple. Another thing, Utter, I notice is that, companies do not hire sometimes because of salary concerns, etc. The team internally, which is going to be able to work with consultants. Okay, now you can hire the best consultant, but if the internal team is not at the level, we call it absorptive capacity. If it doesn't have the experience, the training, the vision to work with the consultant, what can an external consultant do? So you need to have the internal teams, which also are going to be, these internal teams have to be respected and have to have the decision making. So they should not be very junior people. They should be people that the owners, managers, CEOs respect and listen to, so that the consultants can work and get things done. So I think internal capabilities, human resource capabilities are very critical to move swiftly in international markets.
I was having a chat yesterday with one of the SMEs in Turkey. They are trying to expand to US, and they have one other main business. And this business that they want to expand is the small business. It's a new baby business that they want to expand to US. And what I told to the owners, because I see that they don't spend enough of time to the baby business, because their main business is the money maker, and within a crisis they need to really focus on the main business that generates money. And I said, I understand your impatience to move to the other countries, but even for Turkey, if you want to stay in Turkey, it's always on. This baby brand should be always on. You have to spend time and you have to recruit if needed. If you two founders, you cannot spend money on this, time on this, then you need to hire people. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed either in Turkey or internationally. So that's I think pretty important, because it's just like the example that you give. I'm working with them as a consultant, but again, at the end of the day, they have the strategy, but if they cannot execute it, it's gonna go to waste. Yeah,
definitely. And then it's going to be discouragement, but in fact the product was great, the idea was great. Yeah. Exactly. But just you didn't have the team to implement it. Yeah.
And one last thing that I should add there, when you have the strategy ready and when you decide on the customer segment, on the country, everything is fine. When it comes to the tactics and execution piece, then you need to leave time to yourself as well, because either online strategies like ad strategies or organic growth strategies online, they need some time to test. We know that performance marketing needs time for testing in order to understand the audience that you are talking online. So, and that requires time, testing of the ads, testing of the concepts, testing of the regions within that country requires time. So you have to continue observing as you execute. So I think overall patience and strategy first before tactics is the summary of our conversation. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk about this. I love to talk, and also to hopefully, our learnings can be used by some of the companies.
Exactly. Thank you.